I am Billy Ozello, better known as Billy O. Music and its role in my life. My earliest recollection would be 4 or 5, getting a Joe Cocker record with a close and play. It was a record player you would close, and when you closed it, it would play. I mean, music is just, I've always been around it, I've always been immersed in it. I started playing when I was about 10, so it wasn't until a little later. I didn't start as a young child, but I was always interested. I started playing like hampers and lampshades when I was about 6. I would play along to the ZZ Top records when I was a young kid, early 70s. So I always thought I'd be a drummer, and then I switched to guitar and then bass, and then never looked back. Probably when I was about 25, some friends said, you know what, you got to get out of your rut of just working in Chicago and going to school. It's time to start playing music again. So I did. So got in a couple more bands, which then slowly evolved into the Dave Carl band, which then got me into the Survivor gig in 1994. I wasn't always in bands, but most of the time. Only a short period there where I wasn't playing in bands. Through the 90s, I was playing with a band called Digital Hair in the area with Chad Clifford, which everybody in the area knows. He's in the Craw Puppies. I'm sure you've heard of the Craw Puppies. But Chad, Randy Peterson, Mike Moore, I was in that band with those guys, and then we were doing a lot of the schools, IU, Ball State, Muncie, all those schools down south. At one point, Dave Carl, who I used to play with in high school, he wanted to start a new band, and he had some help with the guys from Survivor. So we thought, we can do both, let's do both. Well, the other band didn't want to do both. They wanted us to be solely in Digital Hair, but we thought, well, we can play both sides of the fence, play in both bands and just keep everybody happy. Well, that didn't work. So we went on with Dave Carl, who is now teaching here of all ironic things, like full circle, life and its full circle events. Slowly, we started getting some attention from record labels, and we had a small record deal out of Europe. And then at the last second, everything just kind of fell apart with that band. I don't know why. We were a great live band, all harmonies, just, good songs. Dave was a very good songwriter. He had help from Jim Peterick from Survivor. He had help from Frank Sullivan from Survivor. And that band just dissolved. And I don't think it was very short after that the Survivor camp called me and asked me if I joined Survivor. When they found out that Dave was dissolving his band, they said, hey, you want to come with us? And that's it, 1994. My first gig was a doozy, that's for sure. Seattle, Washington, that was my first gig with Survivor. It was actually a private event of all things. It was, I think the guy was the owner of Midisoft, and he used to work for Bill Gates at Microsoft, I guess at one point. Started his own company. He wanted either Journey, Survivor, or I think Styx to play their wedding reception. And this is my first gig with them, so it was crazy. They put us up in a beautiful hotel downtown, a limousine at our beck and call. It was in some old train station, near Fisherman's Wharf there. But I remember nobody was using the limousine. So what do? Use the limousine, baby. I just went to the Space Needle, Fisherman's Wharf. It was kind of a touristy thing to do, but I figured if no one else was going to use it, it was given to us for the weekend. Somebody might as well use it. That was my first introduction to rock and roll. Full in, head on. It was kind of not a weird gig, but it was a private wedding. So Survivor playing a wedding reception, basically. A little different, but you know what? It was still a really fun gig and a good way to introduce myself to the process. And after that, it was just, shows all over the country, and we did go to Europe quite a few times, but, a lot of good memories and a lot of hard work because I was working full time while doing most of this. So that made it very difficult. Singing and music isn't perfect. That's what the way it's imperfect. That's what makes it special. It's human. It lives, it breathes, what I mean? If you try to take it and put it in a computer and make it perfect, it just loses its human element. Emotion or feeling. After 60 years on this planet, I've played more professionally than a lot of musicians will do. They weren't on the road as much as some bands, but when we did travel, it was everywhere. I've played in every state in the United States, and been to Europe and South America and Mexico, Hawaii, been all over the place. So never took it for granted. Never took it for granted. And you shouldn't take anything for granted in life, so I tried not to. Some might say I did, but I don't think I did.